Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da. Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da.
Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to a brand new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Tonight we'll be talking with Terrificon owner Mitch Hallock all about the brand new convention he's got coming up here at the end of July, celebrating 60 years of Spider-Man with some fantastic guests. After that, we'll talk to composer and lyricist Drew Gasparini about the brand new The Karate Kid the Musical making its debut here in St. Louis before it moves to Broadway. Stand by.
TV, comics and movies and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek and Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
And if you're driving around the greater St. Louis area tonight, hearing us on the Big 550 KTRS celebrating 25 years in broadcasting, hello, welcome, and thank you for listening. If you're tuning us in out there in parts in the world via the web, hello to you. No video tonight. My executive producer, Joey V, is off. He's the one who always sets up the video, so we are flying with just the audio only tonight. You can stream us on ktrs.com/stream. And of course, if you're hearing us after the fact in the podcast form, hello to you. Thank you for listening and subscribing there. We appreciate you as well. We have two great guests. We're going to dig right into it because there's a lot to cover with both of these fine gentlemen. First up, we've had him on the show before, always easily one of the best conventions I ever attend throughout the year. Terrificon owner Mitch Hallock. Mitch, how are you?
I'm very good, James. How are you tonight?
Doing well. I appreciate the time tonight. It's always great to talk to you because, A, you're the self-styled king of pop culture with all the stuff you know, just your vast knowledge, but the people you know, and you always get these great guests coming to Terrificon. What year is this for you as doing this show?
I've been doing this now for 10 years, and this will be our 8th show at the Mohegan Sun. So it's been a while.
Every time I see you, you're constantly busy. Obviously, when you're there, you're talking and making sure everyone's having a good time. Is it kind of like, I picture you as kind of like Jack Skellington, like as soon as Terrificon's over, you're already planning for the next season of Terrificon, the next one coming up?
Yeah, actually, I already started booking guests for next year's show, which is, again, in summer of 2023. But it's, you're trying to enjoy the one that's coming up first,
right?
The one that's coming up in less than 2 months. But the way things work nowadays, you have to, you get to plan ahead. I've even got a comic book guest that's not coming until 2025.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's a little crazy. Yeah.
And it's great, too, because you're one of those cons that, because a lot of people complain about certain conventions, it's all pop culture people, it's, having actually comic book creators for a Comic Con. You do a great balance, probably, honestly, better than anyone I've seen of inviting pop culture celebrities, but always, always, always with the emphasis on the great comic book artists and writers and creators.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That first and foremost, Terrificon is always going to be a comic book convention and emphasis on the word comic books, because that's my passion. I mean, honestly, it's Sunday night. What do? I've updated some stuff on the website for Terrificon. I was hanging out with my wife. She went to bed, and I was literally about to sit down with one of my omnibuses and read comics until I fall asleep. So, that's
sounds like you're living the life.
Yeah. I'm just burning the candle at both ends. That's me. Yeah.
And with this being, we mentioned before the show started, this is the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man appearing in August 1962, an amazing fantasy. You've got some fantastic guests. John Romita Jr. will be there, Dan Jurgens, Jerry Conway. You've got Garth Ennis, Ryan Otley, Howard Chaykin, Rick Leonardi, who worked on Spider-Man 2099. You have such a great focus on Spider-Man guests, but obviously these people have all worked on tons of books.
Yeah. But no, Spider-Man being the first hero I ever read as a kid, and I think everybody everybody knows Spider-Man around the world, but he's always been my hero. I know Captain America's a close second, but Spidey was my first love. And when I noticed the calendar, I said, oh, wait a minute, August 62, that's 60 years ago. And then Terrificon's going to be July 31st is the last day of it. So we're right on the cusp of Spidey's 60th birthday. And I said, let's get as many Spidey creators as we can into the building and just go hog wild and talk about them, from artwork to writing to voiceover to cartoons. I've got, the folks that have made the animated Spider-Mans there. So, yeah, this is going to be all-out Spider-Man celebration.
And like you said, the animated, the Dan Gilvezan, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm telling you, Mitch, anytime I pick up a Spider-Man comic, I hear Dan's voice as Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah. Last year, we were fortunate to have Kathy Garver, who's Firestar, and I was trying to get Dan last year and trying to do a reunion, but, things were a little hectic with the whole coming back from the COVID. We couldn't get him last year, so we have him this year, too. We actually have a man named Rick Hoberg, who was a comic book artist when he began in the 70s, worked on Star Wars at Marvel and a bunch of other books, but then he went over to California and became the storyboard artist, if you will, for all the animation that people know and love. But he worked on Spider-Man, he worked on Teenage Turtles, he worked on G.I. Joe, he worked on the X-Men cartoon series. So he's going to be there as well. So you kind of got like a person who walked between both worlds. He was a comic book artist, and then he brought to life so much of the animation and the cartoons we all know and love. So he'll be there at Terrificon as well.
And as I am kind of partial to this particular group of people, not Spider-Man related, but we've got a nice Justice League reunion going on with Susan Eisenberg, Phil LaMarr, and Kevin Conroy, who are just sensational people as well.
Yep, and there's another gentleman who's coming soon, and I just can't announce him right now. I'm waiting to hear back. His contracts are all signed and sealed, and it's just a matter of getting some artwork approved for his guest announcement, and he will be with us. It's somebody who's never done a comic book convention before, and you'll know him when you see him and you hear him, especially hear him, and it's something to do with the Justice League. So that's all I can say.
I'm not going to press you, but if I find out you've got Carl Lumley, I'm going to lose my mind.
No, it's not. You know what? I'm going to tell you a little story. Carl Lumley was scheduled to come in 2020. I was emailing him directly because Phil LaMarr put me in contact with him and played up the show and said how great it was. And Carl emailed me, and he and I were going back and forth for like 3 or 4 months. Everything was getting lined up, but unfortunately things were what they were in 2020, so we had to cancel the show. And that was I've talked to him since, and I don't know what it was. He was so kind of gun shy about coming out, and he was going to do it, and then of course everything went kablooey, and then he kind of went back and didn't want to come again. But I tried because I wanted him there because the Winter Soldier was coming out, and he was a big part of that Winter Soldier Falcon TV series. Yeah, that
was great. So I always assume, like, as it gets closer, most of the announcements are made. So do you have just this one big one left, or there's still a couple you've got up your sleeve that we need to watch the social media and websites for?
Well, yeah. When I was doing it tonight, I just did another actor. That's the thing. My wife kicks me. She goes, why do you always jump the gun and put so many folks out early when you know that you get people in the last couple months? I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't get Henry Winkler until June, and the show was in August, and then we got Ralph Macchio in July, like 3 weeks before the show. So there's always these last-minute surprises that happen to us, and it surprises me because they'll call me up, and I go, "Oh, really?" And the schedules change, and they're in the area, and they go, "Hey, can I be there?" So I can't tell you this one because I put it up on the website, and I'll do the social media tomorrow. An actor named Dan Fogler, who folks might know, he's in those Harry Potter Fantastic Beasts movies, and he's on The Goldbergs. He's been in this Fanboys movie, which was about Star Wars fandom.
The Walking Dead, too,
Walking Dead, he's in Balls of Fury, Walking Dead, The Goldbergs, like I mentioned. He's just, like, all over the place when you see him. So he's coming to the show. And the funnier thing is, I met him at the premiere of Fanboys, which I think was like 11 years ago in New York. And I knew the director, this guy named Kyle Newman, and he invited me to come to the movie, and then he said come to the after party. So I ended up hanging out with Dan Fogler for like 4 hours that night, and I just talked to him about comics and movies. And then here it is, 11, 12 years later, and I got an email from him and his wife, and they said, hey, Dan wants to come to Terrificon. I'm like, I know Dan. And we started talking. I go, I was the guy that you hung out with at the Empire Hotel back in, October of 2010 or 2011 or whatever it was. But yeah, it's a weird small world out there, and how things just come around full circle sometimes.
You've got such a great show. You've been doing it for 10 years now. And like you said, Phil speaks highly of it. John Wesley Shipp, we talked to him, and he cannot say enough good things about your show.
I love John. Yeah, he's a good friend, John is.
I cannot imagine that with the kind of word of mouth that you have among the artists, creators, writers, celebrities, I can't imagine you get someone who just outright says, no, I'm not going to do it, unless obviously their schedule doesn't allow it. Most of the time it's a schedule thing. Like we'll talk and they'll do it. And then, the problem with having a show in the summer is it's just like everybody else. Summertime is summer vacation for a lot of folks. And, they've been cooped up the last couple of years so they couldn't travel. So now they all want to get out there. Walt Simonson and Louise were supposed to be here this summer, but they're on a family vacation. So they're going to be here next year, but they couldn't make it this year. And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people had weddings they had to postpone, and, a lot of other things got postponed in the last year or two, and now people are trying to get back out and get things back on schedule. So a lot of the guests that were planned for the last year or two had to just postpone. But they'll be back. They'll be back. But I got to say, it's kind of good that Walt and Louise aren't making it, because with the people you got lined up already, my pocketbook's not going to be able to stand it. I'm going to have to donate a kidney.
Yeah, well, no. My biggest regret is Nicholas Hammond. And I don't know, you might know who that is, but I don't know if everybody out there does. Because I was thinking Spider-Man. I wanted him. He was in Australia. He was going to come out here in summer of 2020. He was going to fly out here. It was a big price tag for that airline ticket. And, he's the original Spider-Man. He's also from The Sound of Music. He's also done movies recently, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Quentin Tarantino. But, I wanted him because I grew up with Lou Ferrigno. I grew up with Reb Brown as Captain America. And Nicholas Hammond was my Spider-Man. So I wanted to bring him there. But unfortunately, again, schedules and things move around. We can't get him here in the States. He's actually doing a new movie.
Oh, wow.
In Australia. Yeah, he's working again in there. So that's maybe next time. But I did get somebody from the old Marvel TV show to fill the gap. I got Rex Smith, who I know some people might know from soap operas or Pirates of Penzance or Street Hawk, but I know him as the first Daredevil, live-action TV Daredevil, the Trial of the Incredible Hulk from 1982, I think it was.
It sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, so he'll be here. Just checking him off my checklist. I still got to get that Eric Kramer guy who was Thor that time.
That's right. Have you had John Rhys Davies, the Kingpin?
No, but next year is Return of Indiana Jones to the movie theaters, so probably next year you'll see Sala.
Yeah, him from Sliders as well. I mean, he's got a fan base all his own.
Sliders and Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. This man is he's got like 20 franchises, this on John Rhys Davies. He was in James Bond once, too.
Exactly, Pushkin.
And the Timothy Dalton once,
Yeah.
Look at you.
So my movie trivia knowledge is pretty. I like to show off for my guests like you who are on the show.
Oh, okay. No, I'm impressed because I was like, no one remembers that one. And I think it was Jodan Baker was also in that movie,
Yeah,
too.
you played Brad Whitaker. That's right, the arms dealer.
That's right. There you go.
The Timothy Dalton Bonds are highly underrated, I got to say.
I'm going to get you. You tell me which Jodan Baker movie that I'd probably like because of the title.
Because of the title?
Yeah. You can't get it.
Oh. Is it not one of the Bond movies he was in, was it?
No. He was a detective in a movie called Mitchell back in the 70s. It was in
I've not seen it. I know of it. I've not seen it. It's on my I think it's in one of my queues.
It's a bad movie. And I just remember as a kid, like, there's not a lot of Mitchells out there. And I was like, there's a movie called Mitchell. Let's see it. And then I saw it. And I was like, I wish I can get those 2 hours back again. Thanks, Joe Don Baker.
There's always those movies that kind of give us that feeling, aren't there?
Yeah. You sit there and go, Condor, man, this is going to be great. and then it wasn't. So, yeah, you know.
If you're just now tuning in, we're talking with Terrificon owner and operator Mitch Hallock all about this amazing convention that you can get to go to. It's in Connecticut, but if of any con, I cannot recommend this one strongly enough. I'm going to take a really quick commercial break. Are you going to stick with me for another few minutes, Mitch?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Perfect. If you were listening, stay tuned. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come right back chatting more things Spider-Man and Terrificon with owner Mitch Hallock. Please stand by.
Hello, everyone. This is Paul Souls, voice of Spider-Man and Hermie, the Misfit Elf, wanted to be a dentist on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Coming to you on Geek to Me Radio. Hope you enjoy. Talk with you soon.
Here comes the Spider-Man.
We are back. Geek to Me Radio, heard here on the Big 550 KTRS every Sunday night. Want to make sure we tell you about our official movie sponsor, which is, of course, Marcus Theaters. If you go to the website, marcustheaters.com, you can find the location of the Marcus Theaters or Movie Tavern location closest to you. Available in almost 20 states: Illinois, Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri, North Dakota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia. If you're looking for a good place to go see a movie, these are the locations you want to check out. And, of course, if you download the Marcus Theaters app for your smartphone, if you're out and about, let's say you're driving around and you want to go see a movie, you don't know where the closest one is, the app will find the closest one for you. You can buy your tickets, even purchase concessions right there through the app. A lot of great movies. Elvis is coming out. Black Phone, starring Ethan Hawke from Moon Knight's coming out. And, of course, Jurassic World is going to be out in theaters very soon. Adam Sandler's new movie, Hustle, with Adam Sandler and LeBron James. A lot of great movies that you can see in the best possible surroundings. Marcus Theaters is the place to do it. Rent a private theater with one of their Ultra DLX screens for Father's Day or maybe a graduation party. You and 20 of your friends have a nice private showing of a movie. It's a great time at the movie theaters. The place we recommend, Marcus Theaters. MarcusTheaters.com. As we always say, it's the best movie-going experience in the galaxy. We're talking here for a few minutes more with Terrificon owner Mitch Hallock, and we heard the voice of Paul Souls bringing us back. I was very sad that he passed a few years ago, but I was so glad, Mitch, that you had him at your convention. I think it was 2018.
Yep, 2018. Paul Souls, the original voice of the Spider-Man cartoon back in 1966, 67, and that's the guy I grew up with. Yep.
Yeah, another great.
Guy.
I mean, he Hermie the Misfit Elf.
He was
yep. Such a kind man too. He was just so grateful to be there and talk to the fans.
Yeah.
It was absolutely wonderful to talk to him.
And he was in the Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton, and he played Stan Lee, pizza shop owner. Yeah,
that's right. I forgot about that too. With the guests you've got, we talked about some of the comic book guests, obviously the pop culture guests. You've got some wrestling people coming too, and I know the geek culture expanded in that wrestling field. You've got some great people lined up there as well.
Yeah, that's the thing that, oh my goodness, there's such crossover. I mean, I know there's some wrestlers that write comics. I can't think of his name right now, but he's a big deal. Oh, CM Punk. He wrote some Thor books a couple years ago, but there's so many comic book fans that grew up with wrestling, like, in the 80s when I was a kid. But they just talk to me all the time. They're like, hey, when are you going to bring some more wrestlers in? And last year I had a couple there, and this year we've got some more folks there. Dustin Rhodes, tag team from the AEW, Santana and Ortiz, and this a female wrestler named Abaddon, who reminds me of Darth Maul because she has this intricate makeup that she wears on stage and this costume. It's all red and black and such. So they'll be there at the show. And, I mean, wrestling's a thing. The fans go crazy for wrestling. I guess it's because it's like real life superheroes. They're in spandex and they're battling each other, and you got the good guys and the bad guys and these epic, soap opera like stories and such. So I guess I could see it.
And the great thing is, even some of the stars, the celebrities you have, like Michael Rooker was there going over and talking to the wrestlers. So I guess he's a wrestling fan. That was kind of cool to see. Yeah.
It's funny, I kind of love that behind the scenes stuff is when you see the worlds cross over. They walk between both worlds. Like I remember the time Tom King, who's a brilliant DC comic book writer, like Batman and all these stories, and Derek Mears, who was the Swamp Thing on the TV show, but he's also from the Friday the 13th, and the Jason movies. I'm sorry. Yeah, Jason's Friday the 13th. Yeah. And he was at the show. He's a big fella. He's like 6'7", nicest guy. And he's staring over the aisle at Tom King. And he's talking to me. He's like, oh, do you think I can go over and meet Tom King? I'm a huge fan of his comic books. I go, yeah, well, let me go check. So I walk over and I said, excuse me, Tom, would you mind very much if Derek had a couple of minutes? Oh, my God, Derek Mears wants to talk to me? I'm like, wait, you know who? Oh, yeah, he's the Swamp Thing. He was Jason in the Friday the 13th, blah, blah, blah. And he had his whole resume. I go, oh, this is just so bizarre. And then I brought Derek over, and he's gushing over Tom's work, and Tom's gushing over his stuff. And the two of them are exchanging autograph 8x10s, and it's just like, wow, when you see the celebs act like, fanboys and discussion over other people's, resumes and the work, it's weird to bring them together, and like, hey, they're just like us,
Yeah. And you always do fun events too. Like there was last year, you had the cigar party outside with some of the writers and artists. You had the drinks and dinner with Steranko at one point. Did you have anything planned, like a special event, an extra ticketed event for this year?
Not at the moment, but you never know. Something might happen. We used to have at the Mohegan Sun parties on the rooftop. That was the thing we had years ago. And, those were – and they used to even have fireworks at Mohegan Sun, but there was a crazy thing called the sound ordinance. People were getting mad that they were blowing up fireworks at 11 o'clock at night. But, we've had all kinds of things. We've had a glow party where they used to take glow sticks and throw them in the swimming pools and just music all night long. And then we had we had the Blues Brothers. We had Roy Thomas on stage singing Elvis songs one year. Sean Gunn and it's there's a lot of things that happen. The thing of it is, it's because it's at the Mohegan Sun, which is also, besides having a huge expo center where we're in, it's a resort casino. It's it's second largest in the United States. Mm-hmm. So they have nightclubs, they have comedy clubs, they have entertainment there, they have restaurants and all types of things. So lots of times for me, it's hard to compete with all that. It's like being a carnival next to Disney World. It's hard to compete. But there is a great restaurant that we usually all end up. It's called Game On, which is right outside the expo doors, and that's kind of like a grown-up Chuck E. Cheese. They've got video games and bowling alleys and all kinds of stuff there, air hockey and pool tables and stuff. So we usually just walk over there, and you'll see guys dressed as stormtroopers and cosplayers there and hanging out, playing bowling and video games, and there's a real stormtrooper. That's usually where we end up. But I don't know. We'll see. You're right. I always have that extra hours events, but it's been busy. It's. I'm sure. I'll tell you what. Doing all this stuff, it's getting more hectic year by year because the guest list keeps growing, and I filled 375,000 square feet in the matter of 3 years. I mean, the booths are sold out, and
Yeah, so, I mean, that's another thing, too, is I should mention the vendors, because you've got people who travel quite a distance to set up their booths and sell their stuff at your convention. And I'm sure a lot of those people, I see the same people year after year, so obviously that's another testament to the kind of show you put on.
Oh, yeah, they're already like, oh, I want my booth next year. I'm like, I haven't even sold them yet. But they're already telling me. Not only that, I mean, there's folks like you that come in from the Midwest and such, but there's people that come from around the world that I got to admit, I mean, I'm a big fanboy, but I don't know how far I would travel to some things. I've never even been to San Diego Comic-Con. I've got guys coming in from Australia, somebody coming in from Spain, folks coming in from England, folks coming in from Belgium. And because they'll write to me and they start asking questions about, what's the closest airport and what's the best hotels and all that. And then I start asking them where they're coming from. And they just start telling me these countries around the world that I'm just like, why? And they're like, my wife goes, why are you asking that? I go, because it's just mind-boggling to me that they're flying in, and it's because of the guest list. And not to toot my own horn, but they say, hey, there's very few shows left that cater to the talent of the artists and the writers that were in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, because a lot of the folks have been forgotten about. They just want the new and fresh and whatever's hot right now, whoever, the Donnie. And I do get those people. I get Donnie Cates. I get Tom King. I get, Brian Otley. I get the hot artists and writers that are out there. But I also try to pay respects to the founding fathers that are still out there, and the women too. You got your Jim Starlins coming back this year. Like you mentioned Steranko the other day. God bless him. We used to have Neil Adams there every year.
Yeah.
Neil, huge booth, but he was always there. I had George Perez years ago at one of my shows and stuff, because, those are the folks I grew up with. And, it's not just me. It's thousands and millions of other folks grew up with them too. And I'd sit there and listen to them as much as I would Michael Rooker or any of the movie stars that show up at our shows,
And you've got Jose Luis Garcia Lopez coming, which I remember vividly as a child collecting those Superpowers figures, and he did all the artwork for those as well.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, his work.
Yeah, no, Jose's great. He's been at the show for years too. And he missed it last year. I think he missed it because he was afraid to go out. He was still a little skeptical because he is. You got to remember, he's in his 70s and
exactly.
too. So people are being cautious about going out there. But we had even Joe Giella, who's come year after year. Joe Giella's 93, 94 years old. And he's worked on comics from World War II till I'm like, oh my God, he's literally a living legend. I think he's the oldest we ever had at the show. But yeah, no, I bring some of the living legends of comics and
absolutely
Denny
amazing.
O'Neil. Yeah. Whenever I see sometimes they pass away, I go, oh, I'm so glad we had the opportunity to have Rich Buckler. I've had Herb Trimpe. I've had Denny O'Neil. I've had so many of these great, talented people at the shows over the years. Paul Souls, who you just had a couple minutes ago playing on the radio. It was. Hopefully, a lot of people like you and me get to enjoy these folks and talk to them. And, that's the other thing too. It's an intimate convention. It's not one of those conventions where you got to get up at dawn and wait in line. And if you're lucky, you can get into the building and you might get a nanosecond in front of this artist or writer. Mm-hmm. You'll actually get to talk to these people for several minutes and actually have a meaningful conversation and an encounter with them. So
yeah, I definitely agree. Like I said, it's easily. I tell everybody I meet if you get a chance, if you want to really go to a true comic convention, then you definitely need to check out Terrificon. And again, for those of you listening, it's Terrificon.com, just like it sounds, terrific with an O-N .com. Yep. You can get. I assume tickets are still available and everything like that.
Oh yeah. Tickets are still available. We do sell out sometimes on Saturdays, so I do want to throw that out there for folks, but. There's 3 days of Comic-Con action, but if you're interested in going, make sure you procure your tickets soon.
And there's a lot there, so I highly recommend getting the 3-day pass anyway. And the Mohegan Sun's got some great facilities and other hotels. Again, the website will have all the information if you want to find a hotel close by, which airport to fly in. Mitch has all that information on the website as well.
Yep.
And before I let you go, too, your Power Cosmic podcast, you and the great Jerry Ordway always break down pop culture stuff. I want to make sure I mention that too.
Jerry That's just because we hang out with each other. He only lives about a mile up the street, and we see each other all the time at the comic shop, and we've been friends for like 20 years now. So we just said, let's just put the recording on the phone, and we would just record our typical conversations where we just eat pizza and talk about whatever shows we're watching and whatever comics we just read, and it's like two grown men discussion over comic books and toys and TV shows, and people listen to it. It's funny, but we've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now.
It's always fun to listen to, and I think one of the ones I listened to recently was after you got out of seeing Spider-Man, you were driving around trying to find a diner that was open, and just the banter between the two of you is hilarious.
Everything was closed. People like this. They go, you guys, you don't even bother turning it off. No, and you can hear the GPS going on in the background. Turn left, turn right, and we're trying to find places to go. And that was Morbius. I think we went to that.
Morbius, that was it.
So bad.
Spider-Man.
It could have been Spider-Man or Morbius, one of the two. But we went and we were like, let's go, and everything was closed. And we ended up going to a diner. I think we found the 24-hour diner to hang out because it's like 10 o'clock at night. There's nowhere to sit down and talk about the movie. But that's fun. We got to go see Thor. That's coming out. When you were talking about those movie theaters, I'm like, Jurassic Park. Can't wait to see it. But I'm waiting for Thor next month. That's a good one.
Thor is the big one coming out July 2nd. Thor: Love and Thunder. We finally get to see the Jason Aaron version of female Thor. Jane Foster will be cool to see that. I'm sure Jason Aaron's very excited as well.
Yeah, and funny you should mention that because the very first time Jane Foster picked up Thor's hammer was in What If number 10.
Yep.
And we will have that writer, Don Glut, who also wrote the adaptation for The Empire Strikes Back. And like I mentioned earlier, Rick Holberg, so the artist and writer from that classic What If will be at Terrificon, autographing copies for people if they want it.
I pulled that one out of my stack, and it was not the best copy, so I'm going to have to see if I can find a better one to have them sign and get slabbed, because that's one of the things I'd like to do is if I got 2 or 3 people there, get it slabbed and authenticated with the signatures, not to sell, but just so look at what I've got.
Oh, no. I'll tell you what. The price on that one's going up because of the movie, because of the Jane Foster-Thor connection. Yeah, I was like, that book? I had like 2 copies of that. I have my copy, too. It's a little rough around the edges. I didn't think about saving these things in mint condition when I was reading them as a kid. I would just read them and put them in a box. I'm like, wait, what? I'm supposed to not touch these things and read them? Wait, what?
Right.
So, yeah.
It's kind of a different world.
I know. I feel your pain. Same thing with all my Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
I opened them all up and played with them all and let the dog chew them. I didn't know I was supposed to keep them in mint and card and all that stuff.
Yeah, my Star Wars toys were sold so I could have money to buy He-Man toys, which were sold so I could buy Transformers, and that was my thing.
Oh, no. Transformers, don't forget. We have the voice of Bumblebee at the show and Bob Badinsky, who wrote tons of those Transformer comics for Marvel and played a key role in coming up with some of the backstory there for all your Transformer fans.
Yeah, he's basically the Larry Hama to Transformers, basically.
Yeah. And I got Larry Hama coming, and I have the 40th anniversary of G.I. Joe, and we have several actors from the G.I. Joe, was a great Real American Hero.
Michael Bell, Francois Chow, amazing guests.
Yeah, there you go. You know them all, yeah. And Keon Young, I believe, too. He was one of them.
Storm Shadow, that's right, yeah.
Storm Shadow, yep.
Yeah, great.
And Adrian Palicki, who played Lady Jane. Is it Lady Jane?
She did in the G.I. That's right. She does G.I. Joe the movie. I think she was cover girl.
Yeah, she was Joe's daughter at the end. Bruce Willis played the original Joe or whatever it was in this Retaliation, I think,
right.
The second movie. Yeah.
And now she's on the Orville.
The show. Yep, and she was also Mockingbird on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Just she'll be busy while she's there, I'm sure, with all the different fandoms she's got.
Oh my! And she's in the John Wick movie, which I didn't know.
That's
my
right.
son told me, goes, she's in John Wick. I go, she is? He goes, yeah, they beat each other up. I go, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, a lot of roles. It's like I said, people, you need to spend the whole 3 days if you're going to Terrificon. A Saturday pass will not do it justice. You really need to spend the full 3 days.
Yeah, no, there's tons of people there.
So
and
once
then
again,
new guy Alan Richardson, he's a huge star all of a sudden.
That's right, from Reacher and Hawk and Dove from Titans.
Hawk and Dove and Titans, yeah. He just got signed to be in the new, was it Fast and Furious movies? He's doing these Reacher movies, and yeah. He was Aquaman on Smallville.
That's correct, yeah, yes. 2 superhero connections.
He's been with us for a while. Yeah, great.
And again, if you're listening, the website is just Terrificon.com. Mitch Hallock is the owner and operator of that. It's a great con. It's a small con from the aspect of it, like when I emailed to say, hey, I want to check about this, Mitch is the guy answering the phones, but it's a big con as far as the scope and the size and what you'll see. It's every bit as good as these big corporate cons that come through, and Mitch does it right. Again, one of my easily top 3 favorite cons in the entire country. Mitch, I don't want to keep you any longer. I appreciate your time tonight, but just let everyone know again where to find you. Obviously, Terrificon.com, but social media handles and things like that.
Sure. Go to It's Terrificon on Twitter. You can find me there. And like you mentioned, our Power Cosmic podcast, that's me and Jerry Ordway. And I also have a YouTube show with my friend from Australia, Ed Dollister, that we do the IndieCast podcast. We do Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure, where every 2 weeks we go back and review all the old movies and TV shows from the 70s and 80s that we grew up with, and other people did too. So you could actually see me talking about nerdy stuff on YouTube.
Perfect.
And that's about it.
Mitch, as always, I appreciate your time. I'm greatly looking forward to seeing you in July at Terrificon.
I'll see you there, James.
Thanks. Be well. There he goes. Mitch Hallock, owner and operator of Terrificon. Really, you've got to check it out. If you're looking for a con to go visit this summer, make Terrificon the one. I cannot recommend it highly enough. We're going to take a quick break. Come right back chatting with composer and lyricist Drew Gasparini about the brand new The Karate Kid the Musical at Stages St. Louis. Please stand by.
Hey, it's Ralph Garman. You are listening to Geek to Me Radio. You've made an excellent choice. I can't believe how smart you are. It's incredible. Your brain is as huge as your biceps.
We are back on Geek to Me Radio, brought to you by our premier sponsor, the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau. Discover stcharles.com. If you're looking for some place to get out and have some fun now that the weather is warming back up, spring is upon us, soon it'll be summer, get out and enjoy the gorgeous surroundings in downtown St. Charles, right there along Main Street, Frontier Park, bike ride the Katy Trail. They just had their Irish Heritage Day festivals. There's always something going on, be it a food truck festival or, of course, one of their big tentpole festivals like Legends and Lanterns in October, Christmas Traditions in the winter. Always fun to be had. Great dining opportunities, great shopping, all these small businesses that you can get out and support right there in your backyard just across the bridge. Start by planning your trip at the website discoverstcharles.com. That's discoverstcharles.com. As we always say, it's an historically good time. With that, let's get to my next guest. My next guest is an award-winning musical theater composer, a lyricist, singer-songwriter, musician, teacher. As far as music goes, he does it all, and we're now talking about the brand new The Karate Kid, the musical, exclusively here at Stages St. Louis. You can see it all the way through June 26th. Drew Gasparini, how are you?
I'm doing well. Hi, how are you?
Good. I appreciate the time this morning. It's always exciting to talk to composers. I was going through my list because we've had composers on the show before. We just last week had Hashem Nazi talking about the musical score for Moon Knight. We've talked to Kevin Kiner, John Extrain, IQ Fukushima, talking about their projects. But I think if I went back and looked, and my executive producer will have to correct me if I'm wrong, you're the first lyricist also who's done the music and the lyrics for this. So I think you are a first for me on the show.
Wow, how cool is that? Happy to be a first.
And it's got to be exciting starting with this particular project. Again, The Karate Kid, the musical. This is kind of, if I'm not mistaken, this is kind of like the launching pad before it takes off to Broadway. So we're very excited to have it here at Stages in St. Louis. Talk a little bit, if you would, about how you got attached to the project.
Sure thing. Well, Broadway right now, the landscape out here is there's been a lot of, for the last decade plus, there's been a lot of these movie to musical adaptations coming and hitting Broadway.
Sure.
And when my agents brought this to my attention that the producers were interested in me writing the score for this, admittedly, I kind of turned it down really quickly because my artistic integrity was such that I was like, oh, another one of these adaptations. No, thanks. The Karate Kid. No, thanks. This must be a big cash grab for these producers. But then I went and rewatched the movie and I was kind of refamiliarized with the story. And what we all remember is wax on, wax off and sweep the leg and all these quotable moments from the movie. But we forget just what a heartfelt story it is between a mentor and his student. And it was a beautiful story that really spoke to me. And when I rewatched the movie, it sang to me. And I was able to find my way in musically because he's a young teen who's finding his way in the world. There's a lot of angst there. And Mr. Miyagi is also lost in his own way, trying to find his way through Daniel's eyes. So there was a lot to sing for me. So once I found my way in, I submitted some songs and luckily they hired me. I count myself very fortunate to be a part of this project. It is one of the most challenging and beautiful things I've ever worked on.
And you mentioned, because I was thinking about this too before we started talking today, I was thinking about all the different, like you said, movies that have been made into musicals. And we've got obviously big ones like 9 to 5, Beetlejuice, Heathers.
Beetlejuice, that's right.
When you look
Pretty
at
Woman.
Yeah, Pretty Woman, exactly. And then obviously more modern ones like Big Fish, Mean Girls, Legally Blonde. But when you mentioned The Karate Kid, the movie, that was one of the top grossing films of 1984 that took in $130 million versus a film like Heathers, which was a box office flop and didn't find a resurgent until recently. So it's very interesting that there's not a formula like this was a hit movie, it'll make a great musical, or vice versa.
No, honestly, like what that really comes with, I kind of wish it was not a box office commercial success because then the weight of the title, The Karate Kid, wouldn't weigh so heavy on my shoulders. And, frankly, that just kind of comes along with this type of project. But thankfully, we've been able to navigate it with our interpretation of this. It really is an adaptation. We are not in any way copy pasting the movie onto the stage. But I will say for all the Karate Kid fans and Cobra Kai fans out there, everything you love about the movie is very much embedded into this adaptation. It's all there for you.
When you're working on a project like this, as a lyricist and composer, what comes first for you in the process? Do you hear the music first, or do you find the lyrics and then find music to fit it?
It's for this one in particular, I think it's really important to kind of stick with the lyrics first, because this is all such a character-driven piece. So Mr. Miyagi, he's a man of very few words. So I'm not just going to write a song that sounds good, that he can sing. I have to start with some words that he would say. So it is a challenge to kind of stay true to what the character would say and then turn a phrase into lyrics. So I have been starting with the lyrics on this. Honestly, it's hard to say I remember, because I've been in a fugue state the entire time I've been writing this thing. It's crazy.
It was they just had the opening weekend, obviously, because it just went up the 25th of May, and as I said, it's running through June 26th. But what a reception! I've talked to so many people who have already seen it, who have said nothing but great things. I've not heard one single person who has said a bad thing about it. So kudos on that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I got to luckily sit in the audience and bite my nails for those first few performances, and the audience really speaks for what it is we're trying to do here. The applause is gigantic, and the reception has been really gracious and explosive in a very exciting way, and the reviews are coming in. Things are looking up for Karate Kid, man. It's cool.
And you even had Martin Kove come to the press opening for this one, which was brilliant.
Oh, yeah, that one. We got to meet Sensei Kreese in the flesh. It was wild.
Was he happy with his portrayal in the musical?
Yes, he was thrilled. I talked to him a little bit after the show, and he was just like, he couldn't believe it. He was like, I thought honestly he would hate this, and he loved it. He doesn't look like a guy who would love musical theater, but he loved this.
And there's so many great the musicals. We talked a little about the movie musicals and everything like that too. But it seems like this play, I'm not even sure this show would have been a conception without Cobra Kai having brought the Karate Kid back into the public consciousness. It's always been one of those great seminal 80s films. But I think Cobra Kai, obviously the actors like Ralph Macchio and William Zabka are experiencing resurgence in their popularity. When did this start, the project officially start, the idea start coming to fruition versus when Cobra Kai dropped?
So this is actually funny you say this. The Cobra Kai thing is all like, it's amazing to have this resurgence of these characters, but it's all happenstance because the musical has been in the works a lot longer than Cobra Kai has been around. So Cobra Kai is on its 5th season in about 4 years. And the idea for Karate Kid the musical came to our producers about 10 years ago. And I got on board. I signed my contract the same year that Cobra Kai started. So we were definitely getting going on this before. And it's just like truly just what fate that these two things aligned at the same time.
No kidding. Yeah, that's great publicity for them, for the musical for sure. If you've got a companion series on Netflix, that's amazing. Yeah,
I mean, on top of Martin Kove being at the opening, we also had Hayden. He's one of the Hayden Schlossberg. He's one of the creators of Cobra Kai, and he was there, and he also loved it. It's really cool to get the support from the other quadrants of the Miyagi-verse, as we call it.
And again, it's kind of interesting too because, like we mentioned, Heathers it's a huge success musical. People love that, and that doesn't have a following or a sequel or a franchise or a series out or anything else like that. So it's kind of interesting. Just again, the juxtaposition between how the film did in the zeitgeist versus how the musical is being received and things like that.
Yeah, no, it is cool that we are getting the reception we're getting because I think our job at this point is to really defy expectations. We have so much support coming from a lot of angles, but of course there are the Broadway fans who kind of want this to fail because they're also tired of these musical adaptations. And we have these Karate Kid fans who don't want this to exist because they're afraid we're going to ruin their favorite movie. But I can tell you from the last 10 audiences we've had, we are doing the opposite of what they want us to do. We are doing something that fulfills the needs of theater goers and theater fans, and we are also giving the Karate Kid fans everything they want in this musical.
So obviously it's less of a in-your-face naysayers versus, hey, look at what we're doing to honor the things you guys love. You should come and support us.
Yeah, no, honest to God, that's exactly what it is. It's like reserve your energy. Don't hate something before you see it.
Right. Exactly.
Come check it out and see for yourself. And if you don't like it after that, then, Godspeed. But come see what we're doing. We care about this story, and we want it to work for fans of every angle.
And I also want to mention your podcast, Now We're Talking, where you get to sit down with a lot of interesting folk in your genre and discuss some fun stuff too. How did you decide to start podcasting?
Well, just like a lot of other people during COVID, when there was a whole lot of nothing going on and you just kind of want to keep your toe dipped in show business, I started this podcast so I could continue talking to creatives and maybe put a little hope out there that we're all still optimistic that the things are going to turn around for the arts and for live performing in general. And that first season was a big hit, and we just finished season 2. And at the end of summer, we're going to be starting season 3. So it's turned into something that's really fun to do, but it was all kind of a fluke.
And are you able to do it on a regular basis? Obviously, if you're working on a big project, you're composing, are you able to set aside time to release the podcast regularly? Or are there gaps sometimes which, really busy, we'll put one out next month instead or something like that?
Well, once we get started with a season, I do try to churn each episode out week to week. And I'll try to get a bunch of interviews in 1 week so I can get 20 interviews week to week. But I do take a long hiatus between seasons, especially now because I really had to shift my focus to Karate Kid and a couple of the other projects I'm working on.
And you're working on a lot of other projects. I was looking over your list. You've got Skittles commercial, the Broadway musical, which I cannot wait to hear that one. Everything in Its Place, Life and Slimes of Mark Summers. As a fan of Double Dare, I loved that idea as well. You've got your music showing up in TV shows, in movies like we mentioned The Biggest Loser on NBC, Gainesville on CMT. When you're working on a project, be it a stage musical or music for a televised or a movie type of project, is it a different mindset for you as a composer? We're going to get that answer from Drew Gasparini and finish up our talk with him about Karate Kid, the musical. Please stand by.
Hey, what's up? This is Taylor Gray, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio. May the force be with you, always.
We are back. Want to make sure we tell you about our official comic book sponsor, BugsComicsAndGames.com. Bugs Comics and Games on Facebook. Make sure to give the page a like there. Larry and Tim will appreciate that. If you're looking to find a new place in St. Louis to buy your comics, BugsComicsAndGames.com may be just what you're looking for. They've got a selection of brand new comics and, of course, a lot of back issues. They've got dollar boxes if you're looking just to pick up some back issues, just kind of fill some of those holes you might have in your collection, all the way up to very nice comic books from the Silver Age and even older than that in the display case. And if you want to join the Avengers Club, you start saving money on your new comics, save money on your back issues, save money on your supplies, and everything else. And in this economy, who doesn't want to save a little money? BugsComicsAndGames.com is the website. If you're listening from outside the greater St. Louis area, you can buy your comics online, variant covers, and more. And if you're hearing us here in the greater St. Louis area, they're right there off of Bryan Road, so make sure to check them out for all your comic book needs. BugsComicsAndGames.com. Very proud to have them as the official comic book sponsor here on Geek to Me Radio. Chatting with Drew Gasparini all about Karate Kid the musical, and we're going to get back into that.
Honestly, everything's different project to project, and I do it all for the love of storytelling and songwriting, and those are my two favorite things in the world, my two passions, and I just approach each project differently, but with the same love of those two things.
And talk a little bit about, if you would, because I love hearing, I've talked to all these different composers, and never one has the same story of how they got involved in music and how they decided to make it their career. What are your earliest memories of being involved, deciding this is what you wanted your life's path to take?
Well, in my household, I was raised by a music teacher mother and a father who was a very Led Zeppelin-induced drummer. And our household was just kind of full of drums and basses and guitars and pianos. And I like to tell people I couldn't fall in any direction without landing on a musical instrument. And so it was never forced upon us, despite my parents both being involved in music in some capacity. I just had a love for it right away. And I also loved things like Mother Goose and Dr. Seuss and all these rhyming books. And I don't know what it is, but I started really writing songs seriously by the age of 12. And it was just no looking back from there, to the point that I would even negotiate with my high school teachers. Like in algebra, I'd be like, look, you and I both know I'm not going to use algebra ever again after this. How can I just get out of this school graduating and make sure I can follow my dream? And I had these awesome teachers who looked at me as an individual and not a part of this lump of students. And they said, look, I'll help you get out of here by tutoring you after school or this, that, and the other if you come in every Friday with a new song. And that's what I did all through high school.
That's amazing for me to hear, because you're talking to a guy who his orchestra teacher went to talk to his trigonometry teacher and said, hey, James is never going to use trigonometry. Let him out of this. Let him into concert choir, even though it's too late to drop my senior class for trigonometry. And he managed to get me into concert choir. So I was doing orchestra and concert choir and didn't have to do math ever again. So,
oh my God, I love that. See, some teachers just know. They just see it in some other kids and they're like, look, we got to get you out of here.
Yeah, I think you could see the soul life fading from my eyes every time I'd come in from trigonometry class. He's like, we have to do something for you, James. We have to get you out of
there. Yeah.
But thank goodness for teachers like that. I mean, it sounds like that was kind of put you on your path as well then.
Honest to God, and I had great teachers in my household because my mom and my brother is now a teacher, and there's a lot of educators in my family. And this is another fun thing about Karate Kid and my entire career. I have a music teacher from high school named Emily Gates, and she is, pardon my term here, but she is just such a badass. And she really, really supported me when I started writing musicals and gave me resources and answered questions and got me connected with other writers she knew and like anything she could do to help me. And she flew out on her birthday to see the opening night of Karate Kid.
Oh, wow.
It was really, really an amazing thing to have her there, like a full circle moment for sure.
And teaching, you teach as well, so it's kind of like you're giving that energy back. You're in addition to all the other things you're doing, like you don't have enough time in the day, you're teaching as well.
Well, I found that I needed specific teachers who found, what it is about me in my unique qualities and my individual qualities that would help me succeed and not just go by the rules that, the public school system has to offer. And especially for artists. So there are some artists who are so one-track minded when it comes to their pursuits, but they have a hard time finding their way. And I really like to help those artists because I feel like I speak their language and can get to their level. So I'm here to help the next generation.
And I know we've got a limited amount of time here. I don't want to keep you for too much longer, but to circle back to the Karate Kid, the musical, once again, if you're listening, just go to the Stages St. Louis website, or they have their own website, thekaratekidthemusical.com. If you're listening to this after the fact in the podcast form, we'll put a link down in the show notes. But if you're listening to this right now on KTRS, wait until the whole show's over, then go to the website. Don't miss the rest of the interview. But the tickets are still available through June 26th. With a music like this, I'm an 80s music fanatic. I love 80s music, and I'm assuming that I haven't heard this one yet. I'm not seeing this till next week, unfortunately, but I'm assuming the music obviously stays in that kind of that 80s type genre that kind of fits the music of the movie.
Well, I have a feeling that you're going to see it and you're going to get the taste of the 80s that you're looking for, but you're going to what I have found when it comes to like composing an 80s score especially for Broadway, it's winking so hard at the 80s that I wanted to avoid making it sound like we were making fun of the 80s.
Okay, sure.
Because the 80s is such an amazing period for music that I think gets kind of like kicked in the knee a little bit too much. And I went from influences from like Peter Gabriel and things like that from the 80s, when typically people think of like Rock of Ages and hair metal. I went to Metallica for all the evil side, and I went to Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins for all the good side.
Nice.
So there's a lot of like fun pop and trumpets and things like that. There's also an Okinawan element. They actually flew me to Okinawa to study.
Oh, wow.
Okinawan music, just so we can get the authenticity down for Mr. Miyagi. He's a key part of this, and we want to be culturally on point. We have a Japanese director and Japanese producers, and as a non-Japanese writer, we got to give one of the most iconic Japanese characters of all time his cultural authenticity. So they actually flew me to Okinawa to get that bit. And yeah, there's definitely some hardcore heavy metal from the 80s in there, and a lot of just like Cyndi Lauper-esque pop and Peter Gabriel-esque pop, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And obviously for people who are listening, saying, well, why is this debuting here in St. Louis and not, debuting in New York like big shows do? If I may be misunderstanding, but this is kind of like almost, it's not a workshop like they did with Hadestown, where they kind of show it and kind of start it out and then before it hits Broadway. But this is a pre-Broadway show, but this isn't like a workshop type setting. Nothing's being tweaked here in St. Louis, right?
So here's how it actually works. Every show that comes to Broadway does an out-of-town tryout. So they'll go to like Atlanta or Toronto or Chicago or San Diego. This is the first time St. Louis has ever been used as the destination for an out-of-town tryout. So this is a really cool thing for Stages St. Louis. It's really cool for us to be the first show to do it with St. Louis. And things will get tweaked after this production before it goes to Broadway. But the show you see there is very, very close to what we're going to do. And the only way it gets tweaked is by enhancing it and bettering it. So when people get a glimpse of it in St. Louis, they're going to be like, wow, a Broadway show. But I tell them, not quite. It's going to get even better and even bigger before it gets to the New York stage.
And with this making it Stage's debut, again, I think Stages always puts on great shows. If you're listening right now and you're a season ticket holder, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's great to have this in St. Louis. Hopefully this will generate more shows like this getting their start in St. Louis. That'd be absolutely brilliant. Are you based on the East Coast or West Coast?
I am from the West Coast by way of San Francisco, but I have been in New York for the last 15 years.
So while you're here in St. Louis, I hope someone gave you some gooey butter cake or some toasted ravioli, because that's kind of what we're known for.
Honest to God, I am made mostly of gooey butter cake at this point.
It's one of the things we're proudest of our food. We got a lot of food here in St. Louis, and that's when everyone asked me, I said probably gooey butter cake and toasted ravioli as much as I can say. Well, this has been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. I'm very excited to see the show next week. Again, it's the book by Robert Mark Kamen. Of course, we're talking to the composer and lyricist, Drew Gasparini. Where can people keep up with you online, Drew? Social media handles, websites, things like that?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Drew Gasparini, or you can find me on TikTok at the Drew Gasparini. And there's a lot of nonsense on there and a lot of promotional stuff for the Karate Kid. So hop on and enjoy.
And I got to mention, you've got a gorgeous website too. It's thedrewgasparini.com. Again, if you're listening to this after the fact in the podcast form, we will put a link to Drew's website in the show notes. Drew Gasparini, continued success to you. I can't wait to have you back on again for the next project when we can talk about Skittles commercial, the Broadway musical.
Yeah, sure thing, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
That's going to do it. My thanks again to my guests, Mitch Hallock of Terrificon, Terrificon.com, and, of course, Drew Gasparini. Get out and see The Karate Kid, the musical, at Stages. And, of course, his website, The Drew Gasparini. Max on Movies is up next. He's got Carl Lumley on talking about his new movie, I'm Charlie Walker, with Mike Coulter. Until next week, my friends. Thank you, Uncasville, Connecticut. Good night.
Hey kids, are your parents about to buy you a shiny new toy from Amazon?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Well, don't be selfish. Share some of that money with us. Before going on Amazon, make sure to type in bit.ly/geek2me in the web browser. It will look just like Amazon.com, except it'll say referral Geek to Me Radio up top. And then when you check out, a tiny percentage will go to support the show without costing you 1 cent more. So before your parents get you that gizmo, gadget, or widget, make sure they type in bit.ly/geek2me in the web browser.
bit.ly/geek2me, bit.ly/geek2me.